Hi, everyone, and welcome to Learn and Chat. I'm Brad, and today we're traveling to one of the most remote and mysterious places on Earth, Antarctica. When you imagine Antarctica, you probably see endless white landscapes, enormous glaciers, freezing temperatures, and almost no people. And that's true. But what we can see on the surface is only a small part of the story. Beneath kilometers of ice, there is another world. Scientists have discovered mountains, deep valleys, hidden lakes, and ancient landscapes that humans have never directly seen. Some of these places have been isolated from the surface for an incredibly long time. And Antarctica can also tell us surprising stories about Earth's past. Believe it or not, this frozen continent was once much warmer and even had forests. So today, we're going to explore a fascinating question. What secrets are still hidden beneath the ice of Antarctica? Our journey begins with the people who first tried to understand this mysterious continent.
For a long time, Antarctica was almost completely unknown to humans. People imagined that a great southern continent might exist, but reaching it was extremely difficult. The freezing temperatures, powerful winds, dangerous seas, and enormous distances made exploration incredibly challenging. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, explorers began traveling deeper into this frozen world. One of the most famous moments came in 1911, when Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen and his team became the first people to reach the South Pole. Only weeks later, British explorer Robert Falcon Scott and his team arrived there too. Sadly, Scott and his companions died during their journey back. These expeditions showed just how dangerous Antarctica could be, but they also opened the door to something new. Scientists and explorers wanted to know what was really there, and as technology improved, they discovered something extraordinary. Antarctica was not simply a flat continent covered with ice. An enormous hidden landscape existed underneath it.
And this hidden world is much bigger than most people imagine. Almost all of Antarctica is covered by a massive ice sheet. In some places, the ice is several kilometers thick. So how can scientists know what is underneath it? They use technologies such as radar, satellites, and aircraft to study the continent without removing the ice. Radar signals can travel through the ice and help scientists map the land below. And what they have found is incredible. Antarctica has mountains, enormous valleys, deep canyons, and ancient landscapes completely hidden from our eyes. Some areas have been covered by ice for millions of years. Imagine that. There are landscapes on our own planet that no human being has ever seen directly. And scientists are still improving their maps today. But one discovery is especially surprising. Deep beneath East Antarctica, there is an enormous mountain system, the Gamburtsev Mountains. And their existence created a fascinating scientific mystery.
The Gamburtsev Mountains are one of Antarctica's most fascinating hidden features. They are buried beneath the ice of East Antarctica, and they are not small. Some of their peaks rise thousands of meters above the surrounding land, even though we cannot see them from the surface. Scientists discovered evidence of these mountains during research expeditions in the 20th century. Later, radar technology helped create much more detailed maps. But here is the mystery. How did such a large mountain range form deep inside an ancient continent? And how did its shape remain preserved beneath the ice for millions of years? Scientists have developed geological explanations, but many details of the mountain's history are still being studied. And the Gamburtsev Mountains are only one part of the hidden Antarctic world. Because beneath the ice, scientists have discovered something even more surprising. Liquid water. Hundreds of lakes exist beneath Antarctica's ice sheet, and one of them is enormous. Its name is Lake Vostok.
Lake Vostok is one of the most mysterious places beneath Antarctica. It is a huge lake of liquid water hidden under almost 4 kilometers of ice. And here's the amazing part. Even with all that ice above it, the water does not completely freeze. Heat from inside the Earth, pressure from the enormous ice sheet, and the insulating effect of the ice help keep water beneath the surface. Lake Vostok may have been isolated from direct contact with the surface for a very long time. And that makes scientists extremely curious. What could exist in such a dark, cold, isolated environment? Could tiny forms of life survive there? Scientists have to be very careful when studying these lakes because they don't want to contaminate them with microorganisms from the surface. And Lake Vostok is not alone. Researchers have identified hundreds of subglacial lakes beneath Antarctica. Together, they form a hidden system of water beneath the ice. And that leads to an extraordinary question. Could something actually be living down there?
That's the question that makes these hidden lakes so fascinating. Could life survive beneath kilometers of Antarctic ice? There is no sunlight down there. The environment is extremely cold, dark, and isolated. But here on Earth, scientists have discovered microorganisms living in places that once seemed impossible. Some can survive in extremely cold water. Others live deep underground or in environments with very little energy. Scientists sometimes call organisms that survive extreme conditions extremophiles, and studying them can teach us something much bigger than what happens in Antarctica. Think about Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, or Enceladus, a moon of Saturn. Scientists believe both have oceans of liquid water beneath their icy surfaces. So Antarctica can act almost like a natural laboratory. If microorganisms can survive in isolated environments beneath Antarctic ice, it may help scientists understand where else life could potentially exist. But Antarctica has another incredible secret. Because this frozen continent was not always frozen. Millions of years ago, parts of Antarctica were covered by forests.
It's difficult to imagine today, but Antarctica was once a much warmer place. Scientists know this because they have discovered fossils, ancient pollen, and other evidence of plants that once lived there. Millions of years ago, parts of Antarctica had forests, rivers, and ecosystems very different from the frozen landscape we see today. But how is that possible? The answer begins with the movement of the continents. Antarctica was once part of an enormous ancient landmass called Gondwana. It was connected to places that are now South America, Africa, Australia, India, and other regions. Over millions of years, these landmasses slowly separated. Antarctica moved into its isolated position around the South Pole. Ocean currents changed, the climate became colder, and eventually enormous ice sheets developed. But traces of that ancient world are still there, hidden in rocks, sediments, and beneath the ice. And those traces allow scientists to reconstruct a version of Antarctica that looks almost impossible today. A green Antarctica filled with life. It's difficult to imagine today, but Antarctica was once a much warmer place. Scientists know this because they have discovered fossils, ancient pollen, and other evidence of plants that once lived there. Millions of years ago, parts of Antarctica had forests, rivers, and ecosystems very different from the frozen landscape we see today. But how is that possible? The answer begins with the movement of the continents. Antarctica was once part of an enormous ancient landmass called Gondwana. It was connected to places that are now South America, Africa, Australia, India, and other regions. Over millions of years, these landmasses slowly separated. Antarctica moved into its isolated position around the South Pole. Ocean currents changed, the climate became colder, and eventually enormous ice sheets developed. But traces of that ancient world are still there, hidden in rocks, sediments, and beneath the ice. And those traces allow scientists to reconstruct a version of Antarctica that looks almost impossible today. A green Antarctica filled with life. Blood Falls looks like something from another planet. From the white surface of Taylor Glacier, a deep red liquid appears to flow across the ice. For many years, people wondered what could create such a strange color. At first, some scientists thought red algae might be responsible, but research eventually revealed a different explanation. The water beneath the glacier is extremely salty and rich in iron. When that iron-rich water reaches the surface and comes into contact with oxygen, the iron oxidizes. It's similar to the process that creates rust, and that gives the water its unusual red color. But Blood Falls is still scientifically fascinating. The salty water beneath the glacier contains microorganisms that can survive in a cold, dark environment without sunlight. And this is a perfect example of something important. Not every mystery needs an extraordinary explanation. Sometimes, something that looks almost impossible can teach us incredible things about how our planet actually works. And Antarctica has another connection to worlds far beyond Earth, because scattered across its ice are rocks that came from space. Antarctica is one of the best places on Earth to search for meteorites, and there is a simple reason for that. Meteorites are usually dark, so they are much easier to see against the white Antarctic ice. But the ice does something else. As it slowly moves across the continent, it can concentrate meteorites in certain areas. Scientists have collected thousands of them. Most came from asteroids, but some are much more unusual. Researchers have identified meteorites that originally came from the Moon and even from Mars. Imagine that for a moment. A powerful impact hits Mars. A piece of rock escapes into space. It travels through the solar system, eventually reaches Earth, and lands in Antarctica. Then, millions of years later, a scientist finds it sitting on the ice. These meteorites can contain information about worlds incredibly far away. But Antarctica also preserves something much closer to home, something trapped inside its ice. Tiny samples of Earth's ancient atmosphere. And this is where Antarctic ice becomes almost like a time machine. Scientists drill deep into the ice and remove long cylinders called ice cores. These layers of ice were formed from snow that fell thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of years ago. But inside the ice, something incredible is preserved. Tiny bubbles of ancient air. These bubbles contain samples of the atmosphere from the past. By studying them, scientists can measure gases such as carbon dioxide and compare ancient conditions with our atmosphere today. Ice cores can also provide information about temperatures, volcanic eruptions, and major changes in Earth's climate. Think about that for a moment. A tiny bubble trapped inside Antarctic ice can contain air from a world that existed long before modern civilization. And scientists are continuing to search for even older ice. But Antarctica doesn't only allow us to look deep into Earth's past. Its unique environment also helps scientists look far beyond our planet, into the universe itself.
Antarctica is not only a place to study Earth, it is also an extraordinary place to study the universe. The air above the continent is extremely cold and dry, and there is very little light pollution in many areas. This makes Antarctica valuable for astronomy and other scientific experiments. One of the most fascinating projects is called IceCube. But instead of looking through a traditional telescope, IceCube uses thousands of sensors buried deep inside the Antarctic ice. These sensors search for particles called neutrinos. Neutrinos are incredibly small particles that can travel enormous distances through space and even pass through matter. Some come from extremely powerful events in the universe. By detecting them, scientists can learn more about distant cosmic objects and violent events far beyond our solar system. So, beneath the Antarctic ice, scientists are not only studying our planet, they are also using the ice itself as an enormous scientific instrument.
And modern technology is allowing us to explore Antarctica in ways that were impossible only a few decades ago. And today, scientists can explore Antarctica without physically reaching every hidden location. They use satellites, aircraft, radar, drones, and autonomous vehicles to study the continent. Satellites can observe changes in glaciers and ice sheets from space. Radar can look through kilometers of ice and reveal mountains, valleys, lakes, and ancient landscapes underneath. Scientists can also send instruments beneath floating ice shelves to explore areas that would be extremely dangerous for humans. And every improvement in technology gives us a clearer picture of this hidden world. Researchers continue discovering subglacial lakes, geological structures, ancient sediments, and previously unknown features beneath the ice. But there is still an enormous amount we haven't directly explored. Some Antarctic landscapes have been hidden for millions of years. And that mystery has inspired many unusual stories on the internet. Secret bases, ancient civilizations, strange structures beneath the ice, even aliens. And this is where we need to separate real mysteries from exciting stories. The internet is full of strange claims about Antarctica. Some people talk about secret underground bases, ancient civilizations, hidden pyramids, or even alien structures beneath the ice. These stories can be fascinating, but there is currently no reliable scientific evidence showing that ancient advanced civilizations or alien bases exist beneath Antarctica. And honestly, the real science may be even more interesting. There really are enormous mountains hidden under kilometers of ice. There really are hundreds of subglacial lakes. Scientists really have found meteorites from Mars and the Moon. And Antarctica really was once warm enough to support forests. Those discoveries don't require conspiracy theories. They show us how much of our own planet is still waiting to be understood. And scientists continue exploring Antarctica with better technology every year. So perhaps the greatest mystery isn't a secret base or an alien civilization, it's a much simpler question. How much of Antarctica is still waiting to be discovered? And maybe that is the most fascinating thing about Antarctica. After everything we've explored, we know that this continent is much more than an enormous world of ice. Beneath its surface are hidden mountains, deep valleys, lakes, ancient landscapes, and environments that scientists are still trying to understand. Its rocks contain evidence of a time when Antarctica was green. Its ice preserves ancient air from Earth's past. Its surface collects meteorites from space. And deep inside the ice, scientific instruments are helping us study the universe. Technology is revealing more every year. But there are still places beneath Antarctica that no human being has ever seen directly. And perhaps some of its greatest discoveries are still waiting for us. Sometimes we look toward distant planets and moons, searching for unexplored worlds. But one of the most mysterious worlds we know is still right here, on Earth, hidden beneath the Antarctic ice. Thanks for joining me on this journey.